Arjun Malhotra and Aisha Kaur were supposed to be the perfect couple, celebrating a dream wedding surrounded by friends and family, but when a DNA test revealed the baby wasn't his, Arjun's shock turned into a horrifying act that left everyone screaming, turning what should have been a joyful day into a nightmare no one would ever forget. Arjun Malhotra grew up in Toronto, believing that life rewarded patience and discipline. He worked long hours at an engineering firm, saved carefully, and stayed close to his small circle of friends. To everyone around him, he was the kind of man who avoided drama and lived with steady, predictable order. When his parents began urging him to consider marriage, he didn't resist. He trusted their judgment and believed they would find someone suitable. That trust eventually led him to Aisha Kaur, a woman he had only seen through video calls before their first meeting. She lived in Delhi, worked in a small travel agency, and carried herself with a confidence that instantly caught his attention. Their conversations grew frequent and warm. Arjun appreciated her calm voice, and Aisha liked the stability he offered. Both families approved quickly, believing the match would blend two steady, compatible personalities. Even though they came from different parts of the world, their futures seemed predictable and safe. Arjun imagined a peaceful marriage, a comfortable home in Canada, and a child to complete their family. Aisha imagined a life far away from the pressure of her job, where she could start fresh and bury the memories she didn't want to relive. They agreed to marry in Vancouver so their families could celebrate together. As the wedding date approached, excitement grew in both households. Guests flew in from India, relatives gathered, and preparations filled every day with noise and activity. Arjun enjoyed the process more than he expected. He liked choosing decorations, arranging guest stays, and planning the ceremony. He felt proud watching everything come together. Aisha, meanwhile, moved through the preparations with a softer, quieter expression. She appeared grateful and polite, yet her smile never fully reached her eyes. At moments when no one was looking, her hand would rest protectively on her stomach, as if guarding a truth that followed her everywhere. Arjun overlooked these small signs, believing she was simply overwhelmed by the cultural shift and the pressure of a large wedding. He reassured her often, even though she rarely responded with more than a nod. Everyone around them saw a picture, perfect couple preparing for a bright future. No one imagined that beneath the surface of this supposedly ideal relationship lay a secret powerful enough to destroy everything. On the day of the engagement ceremony, Aisha stood in front of the mirror wearing a deep red outfit chosen by Arjun's mother. She looked stunning, but the reflection staring back at her felt strangely distant. She knew she was stepping into a life built on a foundation she had weakened long before she met Arjun. Each celebration, each ritual made her guilt heavier, yet she remained silent. She convinced herself that time would smooth out the fear, that once the baby was born and life settled, the truth would fade into the background. Arjun entered the room briefly, smiling with genuine affection. He believed he was the luckiest man in the world. In his mind, everything was perfect. The wedding, the families, the future child. Aisha forced a smile, hoping he wouldn't notice the tension behind it. Their lives were moving forward with unstoppable momentum, and she felt trapped between her past and the beautiful future being built for her. The secret she carried was tightly sealed, but destiny was already preparing to tear it open in the most brutal way possible. The days following the engagement were busy with travel arrangements, final fittings, and endless guest coordination. Arjun suggested that Aisha come to Canada earlier so she could settle before the wedding chaos intensified. She agreed, believing the distance from Delhi would give her some breathing room. Once in Vancouver, Arjun took her for medical checkups, wanting to ensure everything about the pregnancy was progressing safely. He felt proud of himself for being a responsible future father, unaware that each visit tightened the knot of fear wrapped around Aisha's heart. At one clinic, a nurse casually explained the package of prenatal screenings included in their appointment. To Arjun, the terms sounded normal, routine, and part of good care. To Aisha, however, one word stood out sharply: DNA. She felt the floor shift beneath her. The nurse went on efficiently, unaware of the silent panic forming behind Aisha's composed expression. Arjun nodded through the information, encouraging Aisha to trust the process. She could barely breathe, but she forced herself to comply, hoping that perhaps the test wasn't mandatory or wouldn't be analyzed deeply. She clung to any possibility that might save her. A few days later, Arjun returned from work to find an envelope on the kitchen counter addressed to him. He assumed it contained basic health details. His hands opened it casually, expecting reassurance. Instead, the first line froze his entire body. The test confirmed a fact he had never imagined possible. The child Aisha was carrying was not his. The shock spread through him like ice. His chest tightened, and he felt the room grow smaller. In that moment, the world he had been building collapsed silently. Thoughts rushed in: betrayal, humiliation, confusion, entangled into a painful knot he couldn't untie. Arjun prided himself on rational thinking, but this discovery shattered every sense of stability he had relied on. He spent hours sitting alone, staring at the report. Aisha was upstairs resting, unaware of the earthquake that had erupted below. Arjun could not process how the woman he trusted completely, the woman he believed he would raise a child with, had deceived him at such a fundamental level. The betrayal felt personal, deep, and unforgettable. Every memory of their conversations, every moment of warmth, now felt contaminated by the truth he held in his trembling hands. Instead of confronting her, Arjun folded the report neatly and hid it. His calm nature transformed into something quiet but dangerous. He continued speaking to her gently, performing every task expected of a soon-to-be groom, while his mind sank deeper into resentment. His silence created a cage inside him where anger grew unchecked. He became skilled at pretending, masking his disbelief with polite expressions. Aisha sensed a slight shift in his behavior. He spoke less, slept restlessly, and avoided eye contact, but she assumed he was simply stressed by the wedding workload. She never imagined he knew her secret. She convinced herself that the test might not be thorough or that the results wouldn't reach him. She hoped fate would give her a chance to hide the truth forever. But Arjun was already planning, not to walk away, not to question her, but to expose everything publicly. The betrayal had wounded his pride, and the more he replayed the revelation in his mind, the more he felt the need to punish. The wedding preparation continued with smiling faces around them, unaware that beneath the surface, the calmest man in the room was slowly transforming into the center of an unfolding tragedy. The wedding day arrived with sunshine spreading across the outdoor venue, making everything appear warm and perfect. Decorations covered the space in soft gold and white, reflecting the family's excitement. Guests dressed elegantly, filling the area with conversation and cheerful anticipation. No one could sense the storm brewing in silence. Arjun moved quietly among relatives, offering greetings and instructions, performing every duty expected from a groom. His face held the same calmness people admired, but beneath that mask lived a heaviness that had grown darker every day. The folded DNA report rested inside his sherwani pocket, like a hidden blade waiting for its moment. Aisha stepped out of the preparation room looking breathtaking in her bridal attire. Her outfit shimmered under the sunlight, and her hair was styled with delicate ornaments that made her appear graceful and serene. But her expression remained clouded. She carried a tired heaviness that no amount of makeup could hide. Her hands occasionally touched her stomach, as if searching for strength or comfort. She felt the pressure of living two lives, one that the world celebrated and another built upon fear and secrets. Still, she pushed forward, thinking she could leave her past behind after this final day. As the ceremony began, music played softly and guests smiled brightly, capturing every moment with their phones. Arjun and Aisha exchanged garlands and posed for photographs surrounded by family. To outsiders, they looked like a couple beginning a beautiful journey together. But Arjun's eyes lacked warmth. He watched Aisha closely, not with love, but with a cold determination. Every step she took, every gesture she made, deepened the pain in his chest. He felt trapped between the image everyone saw and the truth he carried. When the rituals ended, the couple stood on a decorated stage to greet guests. People lined up to offer blessings, take pictures, and congratulate them. Aisha tried to stay composed, telling herself that if she survived this day, everything might settle. She didn't notice the way Arjun's fingers brushed the hidden paper inside his pocket. He waited for the right moment, the moment when all eyes were on them. Then, as the photographer called for a group picture, Arjun stepped slightly forward. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded DNA report. The paper looked harmless, but the atmosphere changed instantly. A few guests at the front noticed it first. The sharp print, the medical logo, the bold heading. Confusion spread through the crowd like ripples in water. Murmurs began, soft at first, then growing louder. Aisha recognized the document immediately. Her breath caught, and her body stiffened. The nightmare she had been avoiding had finally arrived. Before she could move or speak, Arjun reached into his sherwani again. His movements were deliberate, steady, and terrifyingly calm. In one swift motion, he pulled out the small weapon he had hidden earlier in the day. Gasps erupted around the venue, but no one reacted quickly enough. The gunshot tore through the air, shattering the music, the celebration, and the illusion of happiness in an instant. Aisha collapsed to the ground as the crowd erupted into screams. Some guests froze in shock, others ran for cover, and a few tried to rush toward the stage, but the damage had already been done. Arjun didn't run, he didn't yell. He simply stood there, expression blank, staring at Aisha's motionless body as chaos exploded around him. The wedding that was supposed to unite two families had transformed into a crime scene, leaving everyone stunned and terrified. The truth he had carried remained on the floor next to him, stained by the moment he chose to destroy everything. Police cars arrived within minutes, their sirens slicing through the panicked cries of guests, still scattered across the venue. Officers pushed through the crowd, securing the area and forcing everyone to step back. Arjun stood where he had been moments earlier, unmoving and silent, as if his mind had detached from the chaos he had caused. He surrendered without resistance, allowing the officers to handcuff him and lead him away. The once beautiful wedding setting was now covered in overturned chairs, abandoned shoes, splattered food, and a silence weighted with shock. Aisha's lifeless body lay in the center of it all, surrounded by flowers meant to symbolize a new beginning. As detectives began interviews, it became clear that no one had expected Arjun's reaction. Friends described him as calm and patient, someone who avoided fights and always behaved with restraint. Relatives insisted he had never raised his voice, not even during stressful wedding preparations. The contrast between the man they knew and the man who fired a gun in front of hundreds was difficult for anyone to comprehend. Initial theories assumed jealousy or anger over simple infidelity, but the truth was far more complicated. Investigators searched Arjun's home that evening, collecting medical files, wedding documents, and electronic devices. When they found the DNA report tucked inside a drawer, the case took a new direction. The report confirmed that Arjun's reaction had not come from suspicion, but from undeniable proof. Detectives realized they needed to understand how Aisha's secret had formed and why she had chosen silence. Her phone records, emails, and personal files became the next focus. Slowly, a hidden story emerged. Aisha had worked at a travel agency in Delhi under a man named Rajveer Soni. He was well known in the local business community and carried a reputation for being charming, but employees described him differently off the record. Several former colleagues claimed he used his influence to pressure female staff into uncomfortable situations. Some resigned quietly, others stayed out of fear of losing income. Aisha appeared to be one of those caught in his web. Detectives uncovered messages between Aisha and Rajveer dating months before she met Arjun. Tone of the conversations revealed a relationship marked by power imbalance rather than affection. Investigators determined that Aisha had tried to distance herself, but Rajveer maintained control, using threats and emotional pressure. When she discovered she was pregnant, she panicked. With no support and terrified of the consequences, she looked for a way out. The arranged marriage with Arjun seemed to offer safety, stability, and a new beginning. On Arjun's side, psychological assessments painted a picture of a man who experienced a rapid emotional breakdown, triggered by betrayal, cultural expectations, and deep humiliation. He felt trapped in a situation where he believed everyone saw him as a dedicated husband and father-to-be, while secretly carrying knowledge that shattered his identity. Experts concluded that while he knew his actions were wrong, his mental state had deteriorated enough that he acted impulsively and irrationally. The media quickly seized the story, labeling it a shocking international tragedy. Articles debated blame, shared theories, and dissected every discovered detail. Some portrayed Arjun as a monster, others as a man pushed to the edge. Some sympathized with Aisha's fear, while others questioned her silence. As public opinion divided, the investigation continued, uncovering deeper layers of pressure, secrecy, and emotional damage that had woven the path to the wedding day disaster. By the time the initial investigation ended, one thing had become clear to authorities. This was not simply a case of infidelity and anger. It was a collision of power, fear, cultural weight, and psychological collapse. A tragedy born not from hatred, but from a chain of buried truths that none of the people involved ever found the courage to confront. In the weeks following the tragedy, the case continued intensifying as more layers were pulled back. Public attention stayed fixed on every development, and analysts on television debated motives, morality, and responsibility. Many people believed the entire story had already been uncovered, but investigators quietly worked through a growing stack of digital evidence, convinced there was more hidden beneath the surface. They were right. A new discovery emerged from Arjun's email history, one that would shift the narrative once again and reshape the world's understanding of what had happened. Forensic technicians found a series of messages Arjun had drafted in the days after receiving the DNA results. These emails were not angry or aggressive. Instead, they revealed a man trying desperately to stop the wedding without exposing the truth publicly. He had written several anonymous messages to Aisha's family, warning them vaguely not to proceed with the marriage due to private complications. The language was controlled but urgent. He never mentioned the DNA report directly, perhaps hoping that the family would question Aisha enough to uncover the truth themselves. However, every message went unanswered. Aisha's relatives assumed the emails were pranks from people jealous of the wedding or annoyed acquaintances trying to create drama. Their belief in the couple's compatibility blinded them to the seriousness of the warnings. While investigators reviewed these emails, another breakthrough emerged from Aisha's laptop. Hidden among drafts of travel itineraries and agency files, they found an unsent letter addressed to Arjun. It was written tenderly but filled with fear. Aisha had planned to confess everything, a full explanation of her past, her unwanted relationship with Rajveer, her pregnancy, and her hope for a new beginning. The letter showed she understood the consequences of her silence but didn't know how to escape the trap she had fallen into. She wrote about feeling ashamed, overwhelmed, and terrified of becoming a burden or being rejected. She had typed the confession a week before the wedding, but couldn't gather the courage to tell Arjun or his family. The draft remained untouched, a silent testament to a truth that never found its voice. When this letter became part of the official case file, the public's perception shifted dramatically. Many who had judged Aisha harshly began to view her with compassion. Instead of seeing a deceitful bride, they saw a young woman trapped by power, fear, and emotional exhaustion. She had not intended to hurt Arjun, nor had she planned to deceive him forever. She simply ran out of options and time. Arjun's emails added complexity to his portrayal as well. They suggested a man trying to escape the situation without publicly humiliating anyone. They revealed an internal struggle, a battle between wanting to walk away quietly and being crushed by shame and betrayal. The cold final act at the wedding still remained an unforgivable crime, but the new evidence painted a fuller picture of a man spiraling under immense emotional pressure. The case became a widely discussed lesson about silence, how unspoken fears, unshared trauma, and hidden truths can build invisible walls that eventually collapse with devastating force. Documentaries, articles, and online forums emphasized how different the outcome might have been had Aisha sent her letter or had Arjun confronted her privately, but fate had locked them into a chain of events neither could break. By the time the final report was released, the tragedy had transformed into more than an isolated crime. It became a symbol of how secrets can ruin lives, how emotional isolation can push people to extremes, and how society often overlooks signs of distress until it is too late. The story left behind a haunting reminder: the truth may be painful, but silence can be far more destructive.